Welcome to Empire Building, the podcast where we talk about building big businesses and even bigger lives. I'm your co-host, Seychelle Van Poole.
And I'm Via Williams. So one of our all-time favorite things in the empire building crowd is travel.
Yes.
Travel fills our souls. It gives us energy. It keeps us, in the moment and mindful. We get family time. We get to meet new people, see new places. I could go on and on, right? On and on and on and on. We all love travel. I think it's like one of our things, right? And sometimes we get it doing conferences. A lot of us travel around to conferences. For my job, I travel around for conferences. But we also, all of us, do family trips, solo adventures. I'm doing my first solo adventure coming up. I was just telling Seychelle, which I'll talk about, and all things in between, really. Like sometimes we do it with one kid, sometimes with all kids, sometimes with our spouse, without kids, you name it, right? So we're going to talk about some of the favorite places we've visited. I've visited over 35 countries. Do you know how many countries you've visited?
No, I know it's over 15, but I would have to go back and I know it's at least 15, but I haven't tracked it beyond that. That's cool.
The only reason mine is so high is that a lot of you guys don't know this about me. So fun fact, when I was 29 and my husband was 31, we kind of sold most of our possessions at the time. We were not homeowners yet. And we traveled around the world for a year. So we hit most of the major continents with the exception of South America. We didn't really hit Europe that much. And that trip alone, I can't remember now, but I think it was 20-something countries. I can't remember the number.
Wow.
And had the time of our lives. We were gone for about 11 months. And funny, we came home. We used to call it the BK trip, before kids trip. But we came home, and I kid you not. So we got home February 20th, and I was pregnant with our first Michael May. I mean,
oh my gosh.
I know. I know. And
it's like you got the travel bug out of your system for a little bit. Yeah.
Perfect.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
Via, I just think that's freaking awesome. It's something everyone dreams to do, and for you guys to be able to do that is it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it was awesome. It really changed the way I looked at the world. It made me, it just shaped a lot of things in my life after that moment, And in fact, it's funny that we're talking about it because I think that was one of the things that shaped my philosophy that every trip is 3 trips. We've talked about this before. You and I talked about this in our Upper Limit episode, but to me, there's 3 parts to every trip. There's the pre, during, and the post. So the pre-trip would be just that planning and that anticipation and the excitement, all of it, as you're planning what itineraries you're going to do and what tours in some cases you're going to do and what you're going to see. All of that is just awesome. And I think part of the enjoyment overall of the trip. And then the second one is the trip itself, which, hopefully you're having a thoroughly amazing time. And then the third is just the post, after the trip, the memories and reliving it, and having those experiences. So I think every part of it is precious. I just love travel. It's such a privilege for us to be able to do that. So I'm excited to talk about this today.
I am too, and I owe you a big thank you because on our Upper Limit episode that we did, you really helped me be in the moment on the pre when I was having panic moments. And I found after we recorded that episode, I was so much more present and excited and in the moment and allowed myself permission to be excited for that trip. And it really changed my perspective on the whole pre part. And so I want to give you a big thank you because that was a gift to me that you gave me from that episode that really helped me. And I want you all to know we're being very intentional when you guys are getting this episode because I'm so excited. In just a couple weeks, our Her Best Life annual retreat is coming up. And so if you're coming and joining us, which we would love to have you either this year or next year, I think we're sold out for this year. So if someone is selling their ticket, you might be able to get on the wait list for that. But either way, if you're coming this year or next year, we would love to have you. And these might help you maximize your time with us and also maximize your packing and planning for it too. So let's dive right on in.
Yep, let's do it. So what's number 1, Seychelle?
So number one is planning your travel. And this is both planning where you're going, but also when you're going to go. And so one of the things that a lot of us do that is so helpful is usually the fall before the next year. So like October, November, December, we're having family meetings talking about what the next year looks like. We take a look at conference schedules. I know all of us were just talking about her best life for 2023, like our next year's worth of travel that we're working to protect on our calendar, kids' school schedules. We're looking at trips that we want to take as family. And so we're really taking a look at the full calendar year and really working to plan when do we want to be out of town, where is that, and then what type of trips, if we're taking leisure trips or play trips, what type of a trip is that? Nick and I learned early on in our marriage that I defined everywhere we went as a vacation, and he defined being on a beach as a vacation, and anything that required lots of movement was a trip. And that was so helpful for us.
100%.
I didn't understand we'd get back from skiing and I'd be like, that was such a great vacation. And he'd be like, that was not a vacation. I need
a vacation from my trip.
it. Yeah. And I was like, what? We just had the best time. And so defining those for us really helped us then be mindful of we need a beach, we need a trip. You can do both of those. So I loved that.
When we structured our around the world trip, I think I'll just weave that in
please.
episode because
I think it's awesome.
Because we had a year to play with, and we were really intentional. I say we, it's really me that planned it. I was really intentional about this is going to be really hard travel. I remember going from Israel. We took a bus, and then we took a bus ferry, if you will, over the Suez Canal. Got into Cairo. I knew that we were going to have some. It was just going to be kind of more intense travel during that. We went down to Aswan and whatever. So when we flew into, I think we flew into Zambia after that. And the first thing we did was go up to Vic Falls and have almost a chill vacation before we were going to hit it again and all the safaris, right? And then we went and did all that. And then we had a week after all of I think we spent 6 or 8 weeks in the whole 4 or 5 countries in South Africa. Then we went to Mauritius for a week and just chilled. So I was super purposeful about kind of peppering in vacations from heavy duty trips because man, you need them. I remember coming into it was pretty intense going from Israel to Cairo at the time. Yeah. And we got into Cairo at 11 at night. And we were backpackers and we had to do this thing on a budget. And I remember they dropped us off and you could see a Hilton. I mean, just right down the road. And this is 11 o'clock at night at Cairo. If any of you have been to Cairo, not the most awesome city in my opinion. And so I just said, hey, we're going to the Hilton. And so we had a little reprieve after staying in all these hostels and everything for a couple of weeks, being on a bus for 18 hours. I don't remember how long it was. We enabled ourselves to stay at the Hilton in Cairo for 3 or 4 days, which almost felt like a little mini vacation in the drudgery of the trip part of it. So I'm a big believer in that.
I love that. Well, and I think that counterbalance is something that you have a superpower on. And being able to really maximize that planning. So if we're talking about you've looked ahead, what conferences you may be traveling to, what retreats or what trips or vacations you're taking as a family. Let's talk about number 2, which is booking your travel and saving money to maximize your budget as you are planning. What are some of the things that you guys do to help with that?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in airline. I will not take an airline trip without signing up for their loyalty program because immediately start getting at the very least emails of their specials. And then usually one flight gets you something. I mean, they want to get you into their system. Their goal is to get you loyal. So when we went to Dubai and Maldives, we flew business class one way on Air Emirates and I made a huge mistake. I was I'm going to get Alaska Airlines miles. I'm not going to get Emirates miles. Big, huge mistake because I didn't end up getting the right credit on Alaska. Plus, I already hit MVP. I just screwed up. So my lesson from that is always get points and loyalty. Always sign up for the airline that you're going to fly on. That's a big one for me.
That's a good one. One thing we learned is so American Airlines is based in Dallas. So, it may or may not be everyone's favorite airline, but it is the one that flies out of our, hub the most. And so Because of that, we have like our credit card with points on that from that one, because that hub is the closest to us with the most amount of flights from American. And so when we travel, that like credit card gives you access to the Admirals Club and everything else. One thing I discovered though is if you aren't flying on that airline, sometimes that credit card won't allow you into the VIP lounges.
That's
and
true.
so sometimes you can call ahead and just get like a workaround with it. And so that's one thing that I've started doing, is just calling ahead, being like, hey, we have the car, we're priority, or whatever, gold, call it whatever you want. Is there a way for us to get a pass to be able to use for the VIP lounge before you have a layover or a long flight? So that's something that really helps. Another thing too is like setting up a Google flight tracker if you know your dates ahead of time, to be able to watch the flight prices. So when they dip, you can book then instead of maybe booking at peak times.
Yeah, I subscribe to this. It's called Scott's Cheap Flights, and I think there's other ones, but it basically gives you alerts when random flights dip. So like I was just looking at like England for like $400, and admittedly, you have to have some flexibility to use, but there's a lot of really cool aggregators like that who for a small fee will give you really good deals on flights. And so I love that. And I just also wanted to add, I think it's probably undisputed the best credit card for travel is American Express, because if you have a Centurion card and different cards, you usually have access to the American Express lounge.
Yep.
I'm really glad you mentioned that. And so, some airlines, if you fly first class, you get access to their lounge. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes if you get the upgrade, you don't get access. So having an American Express card is really great, I think.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. One other thing we just discovered this summer when we were traveling internationally is making sure you understand what the rules are for entering and exiting countries, but also like we didn't realize, we just came back from Amsterdam, and they're having huge labor shortages at the airline, at all the airports. And so when we left Amsterdam, we had to give ourselves 3.5 to 4 hours at the airport instead of your normal 2 to 2.5, because we had to go through 3-hour-long lines, and we had like, clear and priority and name all the things. And it still took us almost 3 hours to get through security. So really double check as you're flying internationally right now and planning. Make sure you're giving yourself enough time between travel and travel to the airports, because it's very different than it was even for us a couple of years ago, traveling pre-COVID. So that was a big difference too. The other one I like is like searching for airlines. I feel like they have like cameras watching you or something while you're looking for flights, because it's like no sooner than you look and you're going to go back and book the flight that it's jumped $300 a flight. So I do search for my flights in incognito window. Like a Google
smart.
Incognito window instead of just on my regular browser, because I've found that for some reason, magically, the flight prices don't seem to jump as much when we're looking to book within a couple of days of searching for the initial flights.
I would not have. That's really, really smart. I love that. All right.
All the credit goes to Nick on that. He really figured that out, if we're going to be honest.
Smart.
So he's the hacker with
there's a lot of ways, I think to save money. One of them, lastly, and then we'll move on to our next one, is domestically. I don't know if you guys know this. Someone taught me this years ago, though. Many business travelers book their flights within 14 days. So there is a definite price increase that happens when you're sub 14 days. You'll see prices shoot up for a flight.
Oh.
So the more in advance you can get them, usually it's a little bit lower in price. The exception can be at the last minute. So while they'll open it up 14 days, if they're not filling a flight, then it can sometimes open up at the last minute. So there is a more expensive window, and it's always when I want to go book it, because I'm about that person that right around 14 days before I better book that flight. So, just heads up on that. If you're a frequent flyer like I am, I'm in Seattle, and Alaska hubs out of Seattle. Most of my domestics are out of Seattle. So what I kind of have the ability to do, because I'm so high in status, is I can kind of book a bunch of flights and cancel them, and I don't get penalized. Yeah. So, that is a benefit to being a loyalty member of some airlines. To me, I'll often have 2 or 3 flights booked because I just don't know. I'm constantly in flux on my travel. I'll have a meeting come up or, whatever. So.
Totally fair. And if it's like, I've discovered too, if it's a really long flight, whether it's like, you're sometimes flying from like Florida last January for Empire Circle, like from Seattle. It's a huge flight. It's basically like, traveling to Europe from us. upgrading your seat, if it's going to be that long of a flight, sometimes it's just worth it. Like you don't get out feeling like you're unfolding your body out of a chair. So that's worth the
I have
splurge
rules
sometimes
for that.
if it's a long flight.
If first class is, I don't know, it can kind of vary, but if it's like $100, maybe $150, sometimes $200 more depending, I'll just go ahead and buy it. The other thing that you may or may not know is often you'll get doubled points, or at least increased points on your loyalty program if you go ahead and buy first class. What happens to me now, because I'm so high in status on Alaska, is I've hit the point where I get a lot of upgrades, but the longer the haul, the less likely the upgrade. And so that is 1000% the time to splurge, especially when you live in Seattle. I mean, like going to the East Coast is the same as a lot of you East Coasters flying to Europe for me. So
I know. Yeah, that's amazing. So let's talk about number 3, which is packing and fashion and all the hacks to get all your stuff into the suitcase that you're taking with you. One of my favorites is I use for conferences or for like travel, I do use Rent the Runway or like a subscription where I can basically pick up my wardrobe. It gets shipped to me. It's already dry cleaned. I literally throw it in the suitcase and then I ship it back and I don't have to clean it after it's done. Like I love that. It makes it so easy. My outfits are already picked out and it's just done. So that's one of my all-time favorite ones. But if you're not doing that, there's some other ideas if you're bringing your own stuff.
Yeah, I mean, just starting really basic, all black. I mean, when it, no, I'm not, if you're going to the Sahara Desert, don't bring all black. But I mean, in general, I think that the easiest hack is to just, pack a bunch of black things, because it's just easier that way.
It's easy.
I love that. I love Ex Officio brand. I love it. Okay. I'm just going to say I love it for their underwear because it's a dry, fast underwear. And so I often will bring laundry packets if I'm going like on a trip. We're talking like a trip. Yeah. Like my husband and I are talking about going to Africa next year. So I don't want to fill, my backpack
suitcase,
or my thing with 20 pairs of underwear. So I'll bring laundry packets sometimes. So I love travel underwear, a little TMI, but there you go. That's just how we roll.
Hey, the other someone thing is like, thank you for that. I just ordered those. So
they're really good. They're really, really good. But the other thing I like too is often if I'm going Seychelles, on a pleasure trip, I mean, I want to read.
Yeah.
And, we can bring a Kindle instead of 5 thick, heavy books, right? So I do think that's another really good hack too.
That's a really good one. We just did 2.5, almost 3 weeks between London, Paris, and then a bike and barge trip in the Netherlands, which are 3 very, I was teaching in London, and then we were in Paris, which is very different climate, that then having to do a biking excursion in the Netherlands. And one thing I did was I found a stylist that would do an video consult with me where I just laid out a ton of stuff and she helped me put together, because I backpacked. So, I just took my backpack. And so she helped me kind of piece together enough for, 20 days of a trip where we weren't having to do laundry every 5 seconds on the trip and kind of piece it together. And so, for $100, that helped a ton in maximizing what we already had in our closet to really, maximize space and not have to take extra time on our travel.
I love that. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I have used the vacuum pack travel cubes before. I don't know. I mean, that's a little overkill to me. It kind of feels a little overkill. Now, in my old age, I just don't bring as much. I just honestly don't bring as much. And the other thing about, I talk about laundry packets. Most hotels will do laundry for you. I've just gotten to the stage in life where I'm just shipping off to get done. And a lot of the times it's done in 24 hours. And,
it's so fast. It's so fast.
And I just budget it in. It just is what it is. I just rather travel lightly and do that. So that's the big thing, travel lightly. One word I will say is because of the lack of personnel that's kind of universal right now, checking bags is taking a long time and a little more risky. And so this is kind of the time to figure out how to do carry-on, because I mean, I'm traveling next week and I do not want to check a bag because I'm just worried it's going to take an hour on the other end to get my bag with staffing so low. So, that's just something to think about as you guys think about time. All right. So exactly. Let's move into, you had some really good tips on maximizing our trip. Let's go into maximizing our trip.
Well, we have an 8-year-old right now. And so one of the things that I was keenly aware of, especially when we were taking this last Europe trip, is like, she's actually going to remember the photos more than she's going to remember probably a lot of the experiences that we had as she gets older. Because it's just, it's an age where your memories form, but you just don't remember as much. And so I laid the ground rules out with everyone ahead of time, where I was like, I'm going to be asking you to pose for cute pictures, and I'm going to be taking lots of pictures because I want you to remember this trip. I want you to go back and be able to have memories of it. And so I feel like that cut down for me with the kids staring at you with like the dead eyes going like, not another picture. Trying to set that up front and just being like, I'm going to do this and you're just going to have to bear with me because we're going to have a great time and have lots of memories. The other thing I realized was like our cell phone switched from like 5G to 2G service in Europe or internationally, really wherever you go. And so on Google Maps in the app, you can actually download an entire map area of a place ahead of time. And so like I downloaded the entire city of London and saved it as a map. And I went ahead and saved on there like our addresses for like dinner reservations or where I had to teach or where our hotels were. And so I saved those for each of the cities we were in. So that way, if we got there and we didn't have service, I wasn't panicking about trying to find Wi-Fi and figure out where we were heading. We kind of already had a baseline then of how to get places, even if it was a little clunky, to not have to spend a lot of time, juggling the infrastructure of a new city, which was really helpful.
I did not know you could do that. That's really cool.
It's really cool. And then you can share it with people too. So if you're traveling with a group, you can share that map with everybody else, which is kind of fun too.
I think the only thing I would add here, and it's just like it's just my problem. But travel and vacation is really one of the most times you're going to find me completely engaged and mindful and in the moment, right? Not proud of that. I'm easily distracted when I'm kind of on a typical weeknight, and I don't know, it's just how I'm wired. Like I work a lot, right? And so vacations and travel, and I'm talking about personal travel, obviously not a conference, are the one time that I really don't have my phone, on, and I'm not looking at it a lot at all times. Yeah. And, I just want to encourage everybody to do that. There have been times in my life where as a hack, I've gone on cruises or, I went to the Maldives. I went to places that I knew would have very limited self-service, sort of on purpose. It kind of sometimes takes that for me to unwind. I find after a day or two, I take to it like white on rice. I'm fine.
Yeah.
Really, it's great. But
it takes a couple days, though, to
there.
decompress. It does for me, too. And actually, this is a hack from our friend Sue Adler. She forwards her cell phone to her office when she's out on those
I've done that
vacations
before,
or trips. And I did that this summer, and it was awesome.
Well, yeah, because at the end of the day,
that.
our friends are texting more than they're calling. And so honestly, the people that are calling are probably business related, at least for a lot of us. And so that I have done that before. It works really well. And then, what'll happen is your friends will text and say, hey, I called and it went to your assistant. And then you just call them. That's how you handle that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, so next up we have... you're coming home. You've maximized your trip. You've had the very best time. It's been amazing. You're coming home. What are some of the things you do to kind of help ease the reentry back into the world?
Well, I think we can all agree. Everybody aspires to be that person who comes back from vacation with a day or two to spare before you go back to work. Now, I think there's this ongoing debate. It's like, do you squeeze every ounce of juice out of that lemon and come home at the very bitter end and just deal with the consequences at work? Sometimes, yes. Like if you don't have as much time off, I'm all for that, right? I'd rather just, yes, it's going to be a tough week at work, but I'm going to have, 10 days in Hawaii versus 8, right? Sometimes in your life, though, you're like, no, that's legit not worth it. I'd rather have 7 or 8 days, wherever I'm going, and then be able to come back, do the laundry, get the house settled, prepare for my next day at work. So, it can go either way. I don't know if there's a right or wrong, but I think it's ideal, right? If you have time built in. Yeah.
The couple of things I love to do is if we're traveling, I will book a trip from a Saturday to a Saturday instead of a Saturday to Sunday, just to give that Sunday to adjust. Yeah, but a few things that I like if I'm really on my A game and I'm working to get back there, because like I feel like the world has been a little crazy the last couple of years. So these are great reminders as you're readjusting back into more regular travel, is like having grocery delivery or meals pre-planned for the week after you get back, and just going ahead and having groceries delivered like a little while after you get home. So you don't have to think about that. And then also look at your schedule the week after you get home and make sure you haven't punished yourself for taking the trip by coming back and Monday morning at 7 a.m. you have a call and you are just like, what is happening right now? Like, make sure you're allowing yourself a hot second of a re-entry to get yourself organized and put together before you're off to the races. So usually when I'm planning travel, I'll look at the week that I'm moving stuff and then that next Monday or the next business day to kind of make sure I'm adjusting that a little bit so I don't just smack myself in the face coming back in. And that helps.
That's a
lot
good point. I should have said that, especially day one. I am careful about that. I
yeah.
I've never had groceries delivered like that. That's really smart. I've done
it's the
funny
best.
enough when I've gone to vacation, like I've had them delivered there, but it's really smart having them delivered when you get back.
Well, and sometimes like if you're flying home, you can even put the grocery delivery order in while you're on the plane on the way home.
Yeah,
and so,
smart.
or have an assistant do it. So that's kind of a nice thing too. Okay, so switching gears for a hot second before we let you guys go today. And that is, we're going to do some rapid fire favorite places we've been. So if you're needing some inspiration for your travel juices, you've got a couple of ideas to put on your bucket list.
This is so hard for me.
So,
okay.
I know.
It down, but I know. Okay.
Okay, so let's do beach. If you're going to a beach and it's going to be amazing, where are you going?
Well, international or domestic?
Give me both.
Okay, so international, it's Maldives would be my first, but
amazing. Okay.
Bora Bora is a very close second. I think out of the 2 destinations I've been to in the world, and I've been to a lot, those are amazing. Like the snorkeling is unbelievable in Thailand. Like I loved Koh Phi Phi, I loved Koh Samui, I loved, all of that area. I think that Port Douglas, Cannes, however you pronounce it, and the Great Barrier Reef is amazing for snorkeling and beaches too. That's a hard one. That's super hard. What about you?
That is tough.
What about you?
So if it's domestic, I'm going to be controversial and say Lake Michigan actually has some of the best beaches. They're huge. It's freshwater up in northern Michigan. And it's amazingly enough, like if you look at the East Coast, we just had a couple friends come up here and visit us. And they were like, oh my gosh, this beach has no one on it. Like compared to when you're looking at like some of the East and West Coast ones that just get overcrowded. There's like, you'll have stretches of miles where there'll be like 30 people across the whole area, and so you really get it like to yourself, which is amazing. If I'm going international, I know this is going to sound cheesy, but I'm a big fan of my namesake, the Seychelles.
That's not cheesy at all. I haven't been there yet.
You got to go. It's very, it's compared to the Galapagos, honestly. If you've been to the Galapagos, it's kind of a similar feel where it's got the big, huge boulders, white sandy beaches, crystal clear water, and palm trees. It's just, it's what I love about it. There's one island called La Dique that has no cars on it. It's all either oxen cart or bike. And it's cool. Just, life slows down and it's just, it's beautiful. Okay. So if you're taking let's say you're taking a trip. So we've done our vacation and now we're going to go on a trip. What's a fun trip for you? Where are you going?
I know. And this is, again, like so hard for me to like hone it down. But okay, some of our favorites are, we love South Africa. Love, love, love it. Awesome. I love Cape Town. I love the wine area, which is like Stellenbosch, Franschhoek. And I love the garden route. I love it. I love the safaris there.
I have
not and then that
yet.
Whole region, like just wrapping in like Namibia is unbelievably amazing. We like went sledding down sand dunes. We went to old mining towns that were like ghost towns that were filled with sand. I mean, unbelievable. We went, ATVing. It's like we went on scenic flights, like incredible. And again, same region. We went to Botswana and did like cutout canoe. They're called Makoro safaris in the Okavango Delta, which floods once a year. It was incredible experiences where we camped and oh God, I love it there. But we also we loved New Zealand. I mean, loved New Zealand. Probably spent 4 or 6 weeks there. I can't remember. And we did both islands and I cannot rave about it enough. Like we went in caves and with headlamps on and saw glowworms. I mean, who does that? I can't even express all the cool things we did there. I love and I have more, but I'll stop talking so you can talk.
No, those are good.
Those are two
no.
good ones.
I mean, I wouldn't have thought to put Botswana on a South Africa trip. So already I'm like adding to my list over here.
That whole region.
Yeah, like Victoria Falls and all that I wanted to add on there, but I love that I'm going to be calling you when we need to book that because I'm glad to know you. I didn't know that you spent time there, and now I do. So I learned something new about you today. If I'm going on a trip, so one place we loved was Santiago, Chile.
I'm going.
It is. Oh, it's beautiful.
That's my next trip. Beautiful. I'm going next month.
Yeah. It is so pretty, and the coast is like Renyaka and Concon on the coast right along there. All these cliffs. It's almost like Greece, where you have all these like houses and hotels built into the cliffs there, like an hour outside of Santiago. But I was amazed at how it actually feels like Europe, honestly, in South America. It's crazy.
I can't wait. So my marathon I'm doing, it's on September 10th, is in the Torres del Paine. Del Paine? I don't know how to pronounce it. And National Park. And so I'm flying into Santiago and then hopping on another flight there. So, I'm so excited. Thank you for sharing.
Are you going to have time in Santiago too? Or no?
I am. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's great. The food's great. The people are great. It was wonderful. I actually was in a 7.2 magnitude earthquake on the coast there.
That is not great.
So that was terrifying. But you know what? Their infrastructure's built with so much reinforced steel. No one was like freaking out. I was freaking out. But maybe it's also because my Spanish is not as good as my French. And so screaming about earthquakes and, like French does you no good in a Spanish speaking country. So, but it was even with that, it was amazing. I've been twice to Prague. I would go back 10 more times. I just love that city.
Things.
It's just like, it's so neat. So much like the underground, like all the restaurants and pubs and like exploration underground. It's one of the only cities that was not really just demolished during World War II. And so much of the original infrastructure of Europe is there that it's just so rich in history. I love it. I love the people. It's awesome. And then we just got back from a really unique experience with my whole in-law family on a bike and barge trip where we took a barge, like a boat, through the canals of the Netherlands and saw where all of my husband's family was from because they're second and third generation here. And so we saw where their family, hid arms during World War II and where people had farms. And it was really neat. We met up with some second and third cousins of his parents. And it was just amazing. And there was this experience where you're going through the canals and you're below sea level and they have all the dune grass or all the grasses. And these sailboats would come rolling down the canals, but from a distance, it looks like they're just floating on the grass because you can't see the canal because it's so low. It was just gorgeous. The farms were beautiful. The people were wonderful. It was just awesome.
I've always wanted to do that in France, and that's really cool to do it there. I've really always wanted to do that. And you had your own barge.
We had our own barge, and so we had breakfast on the boat, and we packed a lunch, and then we biked 25 miles, and then, or 15 to 20 miles. And then you eat dinner on the boat at night, and we would then go explore all the towns during the day. And it was so neat to get to just go through all these itty bitty little towns that, if I was just going to Amsterdam or I was just going to the bigger cities, you wouldn't get to see. And so I love when I can kind of get into a big city and then get off the beaten path into the local culture to experience how people really live there. And so that was just really special. It was something we really loved. And I have to throw in one more for you, domestic. Okay. I got to throw it in. I got to throw in skiing. I turned 40 this year. I want to be skiing in Telluride. That is on my list this year.
Have you been?
When I turned 40. Yes, it is.
I haven't been.
I grew up skiing the Rockies. It's my favorite ski town in the Rockies. It is just awesome. How about you? If you're going domestic, where are you going?
Yeah, if we're going to float, we've been going to Maui for years, and I love Maui. I just love it for a lot of things. It has a lot of small town feels that you can go to that aren't in the tourist destinations, and it has all the amenities of the tourist destinations. Fair. It has beautiful beaches. I love Maui. But another place I would say it's probably kind of our special place is Pebble Beach, Carmel, Monterey.
Ooh,
we lived there for almost 3 years in our 20s, and I love it there.
It's so pretty.
I can't recommend it enough. If you are looking for there's so many really cool Airbnbs too now. Back in the day, Airbnbs weren't really a thing, but now you can do them in Carmel and Pebble Beach, and I love it there.
It is beautiful.
Yeah,
we've done in October, we've done a couple family trips and rented an Airbnb out there with my parents.
October.
It was unreal. And like the Monterey
one for the
Aquarium, if you have
Yep.
kids, oh,
Yep.
it was so awesome.
It was really great living there. Yeah.
Oh, I can't imagine. That's so cool.
I mean, there's so many other places, but I mean, it's hard to narrow down. It really is.
I know. It is.
We
So
want to hear
we'll give you
your
some teasers.
places. So we want you guys to tell us empirebuildingpodcast@gmail.com. Let us know, if you have any travel tips, what your favorite places are. And also, if you want to hear any episodes from us, right, Say?
Yeah, let us know.
Let us know. Well, thanks everybody for a fun little travel episode. It was a light one today, but it's our favorite topic. Like, we love this topic, so hopefully you do too.
Yeah. And hopefully we'll get to see you on some of our travels. So,
I hope so.
if you're a listener, we'd love to see you too. So,
Yep.
y'all go build a big business and an even bigger life and get out there and go travel.
Bye.
Bye.